My daughter-in-law called. We're bringing 20 people to your new cottage. I just smiled. The moving box still sat open on my hardwood floor, its cardboard flaps folded back like tired wings. I hadn't even found homes for my grandmother's china when my phone buzzed against the granite countertop. The caller ID made my stomach tighten. Ashley, my daughter-in-law. I should have let it go to voicemail. Hey Jane, just giving you a heads up. Her voice cut through my new kitchen like a blade. No greeting. No congratulations on finally having my own place. We'll be there in about 2 hours. There's 22 of us from my family coming up from Phoenix. I told everyone you had plenty of room at the lake house. Lake house. As if my modest 3-bedroom cottage on Lake Tahoe was some sprawling resort. If you could get the guest rooms ready, that'd be great. Oh, and food. We'll need meals for everyone. We're planning to stay through Labor Day weekend. 2 full weeks. Click. Just like that, she was gone. I stood there in the afternoon silence, watching dust motes dance in the Sierra Nevada sunlight streaming through windows that were finally, completely mine. After 43 years of marriage to Robert, 6 years of living in my son Danny's basement after Robert's heart attack, scraping together every Social Security dollar and cleaning houses on weekends, I'd bought this place. Cash. No co-signers, no shared mortgage, no compromises. The deed in my kitchen drawer bore one name, Jane Elizabeth Morrison. Mine. But Ashley had already decided it was theirs too. I didn't pace around my new living room or cry into my unpacked dish towels. Instead, I walked to the kitchen drawer, the one with the good pens, and pulled out a yellow legal pad. At the top of the first page, I wrote today's date, August 15th. Then I drew a line straight down the middle. On the left side, guest supplies, food, sleeping arrangements, towels. On the right side, legal documentation, county ordinances, occupancy limits, receipts. I underlined receipts twice. You see, I'd spent 6 years watching Ashley treat my contributions like an endless well. Every batch of cookies I baked for Danny's office parties somehow became Ashley's homemade treats. Every dollar I contributed to groceries was never quite enough. Every time I bought something nice for myself, new sheets, a decent coffee maker, Ashley would smile and say, "Oh good, we needed that too." But this cottage represented something different. Freedom. Independence. A place where I could drink my morning coffee in peace without someone asking me to fold their laundry or watch their kids while they went to yoga. 22 people weren't just coming for a vacation. They were coming to claim what I'd worked a lifetime to earn. I flipped to the second page of my legal pad and started writing again. This time, the headings were different: rental agreements, damage deposits, house rules, local law enforcement. By the time I heard the first SUV crunching up my gravel driveway 2 hours later, I wasn't just prepared for house guests. I was prepared for war. The convoy arrived like a small-town parade gone wrong. First came Ashley's white Suburban, followed by a dented Ford Explorer, then a Honda Odyssey with luggage strapped to the roof. Behind that, 2 more vehicles I didn't recognize, all packed with people who'd apparently never heard the phrase advance notice. 22 bodies spilled out onto my carefully maintained gravel driveway like they were unloading at summer camp. Ashley's youngest sister Brooklyn immediately started complaining about the Wi-Fi password while her teenage daughter Camden dragged a rolling suitcase across my newly planted flower bed. Jane. Ashley called out, not walking toward me but toward my front door. The key still under the ceramic frog? I'd never put a key under any ceramic frog. Actually, I said, stepping between her and my entrance, I think we should talk about. But I was already talking to her back. She'd found the spare key I'd hidden for emergencies, my emergency, not theirs, and was ushering the mob inside like she owned the place. Within 10 minutes, my peaceful cottage had transformed into something resembling a refugee camp. Ashley's brother-in-law Derek claimed my master bedroom, announcing that his back problems required the good mattress. His wife Monica was already reorganizing my kitchen cabinets, moving my coffee cups to make room for their energy drinks and protein bars. 2 of Ashley's cousins, twin sisters named Brianna and Brielle, had taken over the guest bathroom, their makeup bags exploding across my clean counters like a CVS had detonated. Their mother Janet stood in my living room, critiquing my furniture choices to her sister, while her husband cracked open a beer from my refrigerator. "This couch is pretty small," Janet announced. "We might need to rearrange things." "The TV's ancient," added Derek, already fiddling with my perfectly functional remote. Don't you have Netflix? I watched them settle in with the casual entitlement of occupying forces. No one asked where they should put their bags. No one offered to help with food or cleaning. No one even looked at me directly until Ashley's teenage nephew Tyler noticed me standing in my own doorway like a stranger. "You gonna cook something or what?" he asked, flopping onto my antique rocking chair with his muddy sneakers up on my coffee table. That's when I noticed what they hadn't brought: food, manners, or gratitude. What they had brought was an assumption that I'd become their personal resort staff for 2 weeks. Ashley found me in the kitchen, staring at my empty refrigerator that they'd already raided for drinks. "Thanks for being flexible about this, Jane," she said, her voice carrying that same fake sweetness she used when she needed something. "I know it's last minute, but family's family, right?" Family. The word tasted bitter in my mouth. I nodded and smiled, the same smile I'd perfected during all those years of keeping peace in other people's houses. "Of course," I said. "Let me just grab something from the bedroom." I walked to my nightstand drawer, past the voices already arguing about sleeping arrangements, and pulled out the business card I tucked away 3 days ago. Time to make a phone call. By the 3rd day, my cottage had become unrecognizable. The pristine kitchen where I'd planned to bake pies and host quiet dinners was now a disaster zone of unwashed dishes, empty takeout containers, and mysterious stains on my custom butcher block counters. Someone, I suspected Tyler, had broken the handle off my refrigerator door. Ashley's sister Brooklyn had clogged the main bathroom toilet with what appeared to be an entire roll of toilet paper, then simply moved to the guest bathroom without telling anyone. The living room carpet bore the evidence of multiple spilled drinks, ground-in potato chips, and what looked suspiciously like chocolate ice cream. Nobody cleaned up after themselves. Nobody asked if they could help. They just consumed and moved on, like locusts in designer athleisure wear. The final straw came Wednesday morning when I discovered Derek had attempted to fix my kitchen faucet. The man who'd claimed my master bedroom had somehow managed to strip the valve completely, leaving me without water pressure and a spreading puddle that was already warping my hardwood floors. "Sorry about that," he said with a shrug, stepping over the towels I'd laid down to stop the flooding. "You should probably call a real plumber. These cheap fixtures never hold up." Cheap fixtures. In the home I'd saved 3 years to renovate. I knelt on my kitchen floor, sopping up water with beach towels that now smelled like mildew, while the sounds of their vacation continued around me. Laughter from the living room. Music from 3 different Bluetooth speakers. Arguments about whose turn it was to make coffee, as if any of them had made coffee once since arriving. That's when I heard Ashley on the phone with someone, her voice carrying from the back porch where she'd gone for privacy. "No, she's being totally cool about it. Jane's basically like having a free maid service. She does all the cooking and cleaning while we just relax." "I know, right? It's perfect. We should do this every summer." Free maid service. I sat back on my heels, dripping towel in my hands, and felt something inside me crystallize into perfect, diamond-hard clarity. I'd spent 6 years being grateful for a basement bedroom in Danny's house. 6 years being thankful for leftovers from their dinner parties. 6 years shrinking myself smaller and smaller to fit into whatever space they deemed appropriate for me. But this wasn't their house. This was mine. I stood up, dropped the towel, and walked to my bedroom. From the top drawer of my dresser, I pulled out the manila folder I'd prepared that first day, the one with all my research, all my documentation, all my perfectly legal preparations. Then I picked up my phone and dialed. Sheriff's Department, non-emergency line. "Hi, this is Jane Morrison on Pine Lake Road. I need to report a situation with unauthorized occupants on my property." By the time I hung up, I could hear Ashley still laughing with her phone friend about their perfect free vacation. She had no idea her perfect vacation was about to become very, very expensive. Thursday morning arrived with the sound of gravel crunching under official tires. I'd been up since 5, printing documents, organizing receipts, and laying out everything on my dining room table like evidence in a courtroom. Deputy Martinez stepped out of his patrol car right on schedule. We'd spoken twice this week, once about noise ordinances, once about occupancy limits for residential properties in unincorporated areas. He was younger than my son Danny, but he had that steady professional demeanor that comes from dealing with entitled people on a regular basis. Ashley emerged from my master bedroom in a bathrobe I didn't recognize, probably mine, with her hair in a messy bun and irritation written across her face. "What's with the cop car?" she asked, like I was personally responsible for ruining her morning. Good morning, Ashley, I said calmly. Deputy Martinez is here about our lodging situation. The word lodging made her pause. For the first time since she'd arrived, she actually looked at me, really looked, and noticed the neat stacks of papers covering my dining table. Jane, what is this? She picked up the top document, scanning the header that read short-term rental agreement, in bold letters. It's exactly what it says, I replied, handing Deputy Martinez his copy of my complaint. A rental agreement. For all occupants of my private residence. The document was simple but thorough, $150 per person per night, all damages assessed separately, full deposit required in advance. 22 people for 12 nights came to $39,600, plus a security deposit of $5,000. Ashley's face went through several colors before settling on an angry red. You can't be serious. Ma'am, Deputy Martinez interrupted, Mrs. Morrison is well within her rights. This is her private property, and she's provided written notice of terms for extended stays. By now, the rest of the house was stirring. Derek appeared in the hallway, followed by Janet and Brooklyn. Ashley's nephew Tyler slumped against the wall, still half asleep but alert enough to sense drama. Jane, Ashley said, her voice taking on that wheedling tone I'd heard so many times when she wanted something. We're family. You can't charge family like we're strangers. I set down my coffee cup, the good china cup I'd been saving for special occasions, and looked around the room at these people who'd spent 3 days treating my home like a free resort. You're right, I said. We're not strangers. Strangers would have asked permission before moving into my house. Strangers would have brought food or offered to help with expenses. Strangers would have treated my belongings with respect. I walked to the window and pointed at the damaged flower bed, the broken porch railing where someone had leaned too hard, the stained patio cushions they'd flipped over instead of cleaning. But you're not strangers, are you? You're family. Which means you knew exactly what you were doing when you decided to take advantage of me. Deputy Martinez cleared his throat. Everyone needs to sign the agreement or vacate the premises by 6 p.m. today. Those are your options. The room fell silent except for the ticking of my grandmother's clock. Then Ashley exploded. Are you out of your goddamn mind? Ashley's voice cracked on the last word, echoing off my cottage walls like a gunshot. Her family members shifted uncomfortably, some moving closer to hear better, others edging toward the hallway as if preparing to flee. Derek had his phone out, probably calculating whether $150 a night was worth staying. Janet was already shaking her head, muttering about family betrayal to anyone within earshot. This is insane, Ashley continued, waving the rental agreement like it was on fire. You're actually trying to charge us for staying at your house? Your family. Deputy Martinez stepped forward. Ma'am, I need you to lower your voice. Don't tell me to lower my voice, she snapped. This woman invited us here. Actually, I said, pulling out my phone and opening the voice memo app, you invited yourselves. I pressed play. Ashley's voice filled the room, tinny but clear through the phone speaker. We'll be there in about 2 hours. There's 22 of us. I told everyone you had plenty of room. We're planning to stay through Labor Day weekend. The recording continued for another 30 seconds, her demands about food, her assumptions about sleeping arrangements, her complete lack of asking permission for anything. Ashley's face went pale. You recorded our conversation? It's a one-party consent state, Deputy Martinez noted helpfully. Perfectly legal. I walked to my kitchen counter and picked up a thick folder. I also have photographs of all the property damage, receipts for the extra groceries I've purchased, documentation of the plumbing repair costs, and copies of the county occupancy ordinances you've been violating. Brooklyn stepped forward, her voice shaking with indignation. Jane, we've been nothing but nice to you. Nice. I turned to face her. You've been here 3 days. In that time, you've broken my refrigerator handle, clogged my toilet, damaged my floors, and gone through my personal belongings without asking. Yesterday I found someone using my expensive face cream as hand lotion. Tyler had the grace to look embarrassed at that one. We'll pay for damages, Derek offered weakly. You'll pay for everything, I corrected. According to the agreement. Which you can sign, or you can leave. The next hour was a symphony of chaos. Slamming doors, heated phone calls, dramatic whispered conferences in my driveway. Ashley tried calling Danny 3 times, but my son wasn't answering, probably because he was at work, like a responsible adult. Janet announced she was too old for this drama, and started packing immediately. The twin sisters followed suit, loading their SUV with injured dignity and social media threats they thought I couldn't hear. By 5 o'clock, the exodus was in full swing. Suitcases dragged across gravel, car doors slammed with unnecessary force, and more than one person muttered creative insults about ungrateful old women as they loaded up their vehicles. Ashley was the last to leave, standing in my doorway with her overnight bag and expression of pure betrayal. "Danny's going to hear about this," she said. "I'm sure he will," I replied calmly. She paused, waiting for me to apologize or back down. Instead, I simply said, "Drive safely." The door closed with a satisfying click. The silence that followed their departure wasn't empty, it was full of possibility. I walked through my cottage slowly, surveying the damage they'd left behind. Unmade beds with sheets twisted into knots. Towels scattered across bathroom floors. Empty bottles and food containers abandoned on every surface like they'd expected me to follow behind them with a garbage bag. But instead of feeling overwhelmed, I felt liberated. I pulled out my phone and made another call. "Toho Cleaning Services? Hi, this is Jane Morrison. I need a full property restoration for tomorrow morning." While I waited for the cleaning crew, I documented everything. Every stain, every broken item, every bit of damage that would need repair. My insurance agent had already explained the process. With proper documentation, much of this would be covered under my policy as vandalism by temporary occupants. The invoice I sent to Ashley that evening was detailed and professional. Accommodations for 22 people, 3 nights, $9,900. Security deposit, forfeited due to property damage $5,000. Emergency plumbing repair, $480. Professional cleaning service, $650. Replacement of damaged items, $325. Administrative fees, $200. Total, $16,555. I attached photos, receipts, and a copy of the rental agreement she'd refused to sign, along with a polite note explaining that payment was due within 30 days. My phone started ringing 20 minutes later. "Danny. Mom, what the hell happened up there?" His voice carried that strained patience he used when he thought I was being unreasonable, the same tone he'd used when I'd insisted on moving out of his basement. "Your wife brought 22 people to my house without asking and expected me to host them for free," I said simply. "She said you called the cops on them." "I called the sheriff's department about unauthorized occupants on my property." "Which they were." A long pause. "Mom, their family." There was that word again. Family. As if it were a magic spell that erased boundaries and excused bad behavior. "Danny," I said gently, "when's the last time Ashley's family invited me to anything? When's the last time they sent me a birthday card or asked how I was doing? When's the last time they treated me like family instead of free help?" Another pause, longer this time. "But charging them money." "I charged them what I would charge anyone else who wanted to use my home as a hotel. The difference is, most paying guests don't break my belongings and insult me while they're doing it." I heard Ashley's voice in the background, sharp and insistent. Danny covered the phone, and their muffled argument lasted several minutes. When he came back on the line, his voice was different. "Tired. She wants me to tell you that you've destroyed our relationship." "Danny, I didn't destroy anything. I just stopped pretending that being taken advantage of was the same thing as being loved." The line went quiet. Finally he said, "I need to think about this, Mom." "Take all the time you need, sweetheart." After we hung up, I made myself a cup of tea and sat on my back deck, looking out over the lake. The water was perfectly still, reflecting the first stars of evening. For the first time in years, I felt perfectly still too. 3 weeks later, my cottage felt like home again. The cleaning service had worked miracles. My hardwood floors gleamed, my carpets were spotless, and the lingering smell of other people's chaos had been replaced with a scent of pine cleaner and fresh air. I'd had the locks changed, not out of spite, but out of clarity. My space, my rules, my keys. The invoice remained unpaid, which didn't surprise me. But I'd expected that too. My attorney, A sharp woman named Patricia Chen, who specialized in property law, had been fascinated by the case. "It's actually quite straightforward," she'd explained over coffee at her office. "They occupied your property without permission, caused damage, and refused to compensate you. We can pursue this through small claims court if you want." But I'd discovered something interesting about myself. I didn't want their money. I wanted something much more valuable: my peace. Instead of pursuing legal action, I'd made a different choice. I'd updated my property deed with a simple but binding clause that Patricia had helped me draft. "Inheritance of this property is contingent upon demonstrated respect for the owner's boundaries and explicit invitation for any visits." Danny had called twice since the cottage incident. Both conversations were stilted, careful, like we were strangers feeling our way through a new language. He'd apologized, sort of, explaining that Ashley was still processing what had happened. "She feels like you humiliated her," he'd said during our last call. "I'm sorry she feels that way," I'd replied. "But I'm not sorry for protecting my home." The silence that followed wasn't angry. It was thoughtful. "Mom," he'd finally said, "I think I need to talk to Ashley about some things." That was 2 days ago. I hadn't heard from either of them since, but I wasn't waiting by the phone anymore. I was living. This morning, I'd hung wind chimes on my back porch, real ones, made of bamboo and silver that sang sweetly in the Sierra breeze. I'd planted a small herb garden where Ashley's family had trampled my flowers. I'd bought myself expensive coffee beans and learned to make the perfect cup for one. My neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, had stopped by yesterday with a bottle of wine and an invitation to her book club. "We meet every other Thursday," she'd said, settling into my porch chair like she belonged there. "Nothing too serious, just good books and better wine." When's the last time someone had invited me somewhere without expecting me to bring food or clean up afterward? The cottage had taught me something important: respect doesn't require permission to exist. It just stops waiting for approval. This evening, as I watch the sunset paint the lake in shades of gold and amber, my phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. "Hi Jane, this is Patricia's friend Margaret. She mentioned you might be interested in joining our hiking group. We meet Saturday mornings." I smile and type back, "I'd love to." Because this is what a life built on boundaries looks like: not smaller, not lonelier, but fuller of the right people. The wind chimes sing their approval, and for the first time in decades, I'm not waiting for someone else's permission to be happy. I already gave it to myself.